Let me tell you something fascinating about laziness. It's the most expensive habit you'll ever have. Isn't that interesting? Most people think laziness saves them energy, saves them effort, saves them time. But here's the truth. Laziness is costing you everything that matters. You see, I've spent 40 years studying success and failure. I've watched people rise from nothing to everything. And I've watched people fall from everything to nothing. And here's what I've discovered. Laziness isn't just a habit. It's a disease. And like any disease, if you don't cure it, it will eventually destroy you. Let me share with you what I call the laziness tax. This is something most people never think about. Every time you choose laziness over action, you're not just losing the opportunity in front of you, you're paying a tax on your future. I remember meeting this young man in Houston, bright, talented, full of potential. He told me, "Mr. Rohn, I know what I need to do, I just can't seem to get myself to do it." I asked him one simple question: how much is that costing you? You see, that's the first principle of defeating laziness. You have to understand its real cost. Not just in dollars and cents, but in dreams destroyed, in potential wasted, and opportunities lost forever. Now, let me tell you about what I call the 4 destroyers of laziness. These aren't just techniques. They're principles I've watched transform thousands of lives. These are the weapons you use when you're serious about killing laziness. The first destroyer is what I call painful awareness. You've got to make yourself painfully aware of what laziness is costing you. Not just today, but tomorrow, next month, next year, 5 years from now. Have you ever noticed how easy it is to be lazy when you're not thinking about its consequences? Isn't that interesting? We disconnect the present choice from the future cost. The second destroyer of laziness is what I call immediate action. Now, here's something fascinating. Laziness dies the moment you take action. Not tomorrow, not later, not when you feel like it, but right now. You know what most people do? They wait for motivation. They say, "I'll start when I feel ready." Let me tell you something profound. Readiness is a myth. Action creates motivation, not the other way around. I was teaching this principle at a seminar in Dallas, and a gentleman came up to me afterward. He said, "Mr. Rohn, I've been waiting 20 years to feel ready." I asked him, "How's that working out for you?" Isn't that interesting? 20 years of his life waiting for a feeling that only action can create. Let me tell you about what I call the 5-second rule. The moment you have an impulse to act on a goal, you must physically move within 5 seconds or your brain will kill it. Not 5 minutes, not 5 hours, not seconds. You see, your brain is like a protection machine. It's designed to protect you from anything it perceives as dangerous or uncomfortable. And change, action, growth, your brain often perceives these as threats. Here's something remarkable about action. It has a way of revealing resources you never knew you had. Isn't that fascinating? When you're lazy, you can't see your capabilities. But the moment you take action, possibilities start appearing. I remember talking to a successful entrepreneur in Chicago. He told me, "Mr. Rohn, for years I thought I didn't have what it takes. Then one day I just started. And you know what I discovered? Everything I needed was already there. I just couldn't see it while I was being lazy." The third destroyer of laziness is what I call momentum management. You see, most people don't understand the power of momentum. They think success is about individual actions, but it's not. It's about consecutive actions. Let me tell you about what I call the momentum miracle. You see, when you take action consistently, something remarkable happens. Your actions start creating their own energy. Isn't that fascinating? Most people never experience this because they stop too soon. They take 1 action, 2 actions, maybe 3, and then they rest. They congratulate themselves, they take a break. And that's the moment laziness sneaks back in. I remember meeting a gentleman in New York who built an empire worth hundreds of millions. I asked him his secret. He said, "Mr. Rohn, I made a rule early in my career, never stop when you're tired, stop when you're done." Now, isn't that interesting? The fourth destroyer of laziness is what I call environmental control. Here's something profound. Laziness thrives in certain environments. It's like a plant. Give it the right conditions and it grows. Give it the wrong conditions and it dies. Let me tell you about what I call the lazy zone. This is any environment that makes laziness easy and action difficult. Most people live their entire lives in the lazy zone, and then they wonder why they can't defeat laziness. You know what's fascinating? The most successful people I've ever met all understood this principle. They deliberately created environments that made laziness uncomfortable and action inevitable. I was teaching this in Seattle, and a lady came up to me afterward. She said, "Mr. Rohn, I've been trying to overcome laziness through willpower alone." I told her, that's like trying to sail against the wind by blowing into your own sails. You see, willpower isn't enough. You need what I call environmental power. You need to create an environment where laziness feels like the stranger and action feels like the friend. Now let me share with you what I call the 7 costs of laziness. These aren't just abstract ideas. These are the real measurable prices you pay every time you choose comfort over growth. The first cost is what I call time erosion. You see, most people think time is neutral, that it doesn't take sides. But here's something profound. Time always takes the side of action over laziness. Isn't that fascinating? When you're lazy, time becomes your enemy. It doesn't stop, it doesn't wait, it doesn't care about your excuses. Every minute you spend in laziness is a minute that's working against you, not for you. I remember talking to a gentleman in Miami. He said, "Mr. Rohn, I'm waiting for the right time to start my business." I asked him, "While you're waiting, do you know what's happening? Your competition is building their business. The market is changing. Opportunities are passing. Time isn't neutral, it's charging you interest on your laziness." The second cost is what I call opportunity blindness. You see, opportunities don't just appear, they reveal themselves to people in motion. When you're lazy, you become blind to opportunities. Isn't that interesting? Let me tell you about something I call the action lens. This is the clarity that comes only when you're in motion. It's like driving a car at night. You can only see as far as your headlights show you, but you can make the whole journey that way. Most people want to see the whole journey before they start. They want guarantees. They want certainty. But here's what's fascinating. Certainty is the enemy of opportunity. The only certainty you need is the certainty that action beats losing something far more valuable. You're losing pieces of your character. You see, character isn't built in the big moments. It's built in all those small moments when you choose action over laziness. Isn't that fascinating? Every time you hit the snooze button, every time you say, "I'll do it tomorrow," every time you choose the easy way, you're actually choosing who you become. I was teaching this principle in Philadelphia, and a young man asked me, "Mr. Rohn, how do I build strong character?" I told him something that changed his life. I said, character is built one decision at a time, and laziness is character suicide. The fourth cost is what I call momentum murder. You see, success isn't just about what you do, it's about what you do consistently. Laziness doesn't just stop your progress, it kills your momentum. And here's what's fascinating about momentum. It's harder to build than it is to maintain. Let me tell you about what I call the momentum math. If you're at 0 and want to get to 10, that's hard work. But if you're at 7 and want to get to 10, that's much easier. Laziness takes you back to 0 every single time. I remember talking to an Olympic athlete. She told me something profound. She said, "Mr. Rohn, people think the hard part is the competition. But the real battle is with laziness during training. Every day I don't train, I'm not just losing that day, I'm losing part of what I built yesterday." Now, here's something most people never think about. Laziness compounds just like interest. Every time you choose laziness, you're not just losing today's opportunity, you're reducing your capacity for tomorrow's challenges. Let me tell you about what I call the laziness trap. This is something I've observed over 4 decades of studying human behavior. You see, laziness isn't just a state, it's a strategy. A strategy your mind uses to keep you comfortable, to keep you safe, to keep you small. Isn't it fascinating how your mind works? It tells you, let's wait until conditions are perfect. It says, let's rest a little more. It whispers, you deserve a break. And before you know it, you're caught in the laziness trap. The fifth cost of laziness is what I call dream deflation. You see, dreams don't die dramatically, they die gradually. They die every time you choose laziness over action, every time you say tomorrow instead of now. I remember meeting a gentleman in Atlanta. He was 65 years old, and he told me something that broke my heart. He said, "Mr. Rohn, my biggest regret isn't the dreams I tried and failed at. It's the dreams I killed with laziness." Let me share with you what I call the dream protection protocol. This is a system I developed after watching thousands of dreams die from laziness. The first rule is simple. Treat every day as if it's a direct deposit into your dream account. You see, most people think dreams are fragile things that need to be protected from failure. But here's what's fascinating. Dreams don't die from failure. They die from laziness. They die from inaction. They die from the slow poison of someday. The sixth cost of laziness is what I call potential paralysis. Now, here's something profound. Potential without action isn't just unused. It's unknown. You never discover what you're capable of while you're being lazy. Let me tell you about what I call the potential paradox. Here's something fascinating. The more potential you have, the more dangerous laziness becomes. Isn't that interesting? The more capable you are, the more laziness can cost you. I was teaching this principle in Vancouver, and a brilliant young woman came up to me. She said, "Mr. Rohn, everyone tells me I have incredible potential." I asked her, what's the market value of unused potential? You see, potential without action is like having $1 million in a bank account you can't access. The seventh cost of laziness is what I call legacy limitation. Now, here's something most people never think about. Your laziness doesn't just affect you. It affects your legacy. It affects everyone who could have been inspired by your example, helped by your work, transformed by your contribution. Let me share with you what I call the legacy equation. It goes like this: your daily choices multiplied by time, multiplied by impact on others, equals your legacy. Isn't that fascinating? Every time you choose laziness, you're not just diminishing your life, you're diminishing your legacy. I remember talking to a successful business owner in Boston. He told me, "Mr. Rohn, I used to think my laziness was my private business. Then I realized my children were watching, my employees were watching, my community was watching. My laziness wasn't just hurting me, it was teaching others that it's okay to settle for less." Now let me tell you about what I call the action revolution. This is what happens when you finally decide that enough is enough. When you decide that laziness has taken enough from you, stolen enough dreams, killed enough opportunities. The action revolution starts with what I call the non-negotiable moment. This is when you make a decision so strong, so absolute, that laziness loses its power over you. Isn't that fascinating? One moment can change everything. Let me share with you the 3 stages of the action revolution. The first said, "Mr. Rohn, I had my non-negotiable moment when I calculated how much money my laziness had cost me over the past decade. When he did the math, it was over $1 million. Isn't that interesting? He thought he was saving energy, but he was losing a fortune." The second stage is what I call strategic intolerance. You see, most people are too tolerant of their own laziness. They make excuses for it. They justify it. They befriend it. But here's something profound. You can't defeat an enemy you're friendly with. Let me tell you about what I call the zero tolerance zone. This is a mental space where laziness gets no vote, no voice, and no victory. In this zone, you don't negotiate with laziness, you eliminate it. I was teaching this in Chicago, and a man asked me, "Mr. Rohn, isn't some laziness okay? Don't we need to rest sometimes?" I told him, don't confuse strategic rest with laziness. Rest is a planned part of progress. Laziness is the enemy of progress. The third stage is what I call momentum mastery. This is when action becomes your default setting. When being in motion becomes more natural than being still. When productivity becomes your personality now. Let me tell you about what I call the 5 laws of momentum mastery. These aren't just ideas. These are iron laws that govern the relationship between action and results. The first law is what I call the law of initiation. Here's something fascinating. The hardest part of any action isn't doing it. It's starting it. Isn't that interesting? Most people wait for motivation to start, but here's the truth. Motivation comes after initiation, not before. I remember teaching this principle to a group of salespeople in Detroit. One of them said, "Mr. Rohn, I'm waiting to feel confident before I make my calls." I told him confidence isn't the prerequisite for action, it's the product of action. The second law is the law of continuation. You see, starting is important, but continuing is crucial. Most people can start. That's not the real challenge. The real challenge is continuing when the excitement fades, when the doubts come, when the laziness whispers its seductive lies. Let me share with you what I call the continuation formula. It goes like this: your ability to continue is directly proportional to your ability to make continuing non-negotiable. Isn't that fascinating? It's not about feeling like continuing. It's about making continuing your only option. The third law is the law of acceleration. Here's something profound. The longer you stay in motion, the easier it becomes to stay in motion. It's like a spacecraft breaking free from Earth's gravity. The hardest part is the initial break from inertia. I was working with a businessman in Houston who told me something remarkable. He said, "Mr. Rohn, for years I thought success was about working harder. Now I realize it's about working longer, not in hours, but in consistency. The fourth law is the law of compound action." You see, most people understand compound interest in money, but they never apply it to action. Here's something fascinating. Every action you take not only produces its own results, but also makes every future action more effective. I remember teaching this in Toronto. A young entrepreneur asked me, "Mr. Rohn, how long until I see results?" I told him the question isn't how long until you see results. The question is, how long can you take action without needing to see results? Isn't that interesting? The fifth and final law is what I call the law of legacy action. This is perhaps the most profound of all. Every action you take today isn't just changing your present, it's creating your legacy. It's setting an example that will echo through time. Let me leave you with what I call the three ultimate truths about laziness and action. Truth number one: laziness isn't your friend pretending to be your enemy. It's your enemy pretending to be your friend. Every time it offers you comfort, it's really offering you decay. Every time it offers you rest, it's really offering you regret. Truth number two: the pain of action is temporary, but the pain of laziness is permanent. The discomfort of discipline weighs ounces, but the burden of regret weighs tons. And the final truth, perhaps the most important of all: your life will never be more than your actions make it. Not your intentions, not your plans, not your hopes, not your dreams, your actions. So here's my challenge to you today. Don't just hear these words, act on them. Don't just think about action, take action. I don't just plan to overcome laziness, destroy it. Because in the end, it's not what you could have done that will matter. It's not what you should have done that will count. It's what you did. It's the actions you took. It's the laziness you killed. Your future is waiting. Your greatness is waiting. Your legacy is waiting. But none of them will come to you. You have to go to them. And the only way